Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's Game of Thrones Season 7, Episodes 6 and 7 predictions. In this video, I will be predicting what happens in the final two episodes of Game of Thrones. So I'll have to start with a spoiler warning for Game of Thrones up to Season 7, Episode 5. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. But more importantly, a very serious spoiler warning for Game of Thrones production and plot leaks for Season 7. Now, before Season 7 started, there were a lot of detailed photos and production leaks posted on sites like Watchers on the Wall that give us a sort of clue of what's going to happen in the final two episodes. And also there was a very detailed plot leak, which I think so far is pretty much batting 1,000. I don't think it's gotten anything wrong in these first 5 episodes. So you have to take it that pretty much everything it says laid out for the last 2 episodes is going to happen as well. So some of you might be saying, like, well, how can you call this predictions and if you're just regurgitating what you saw in some spoiler? But that's not all I'm doing. I'm basing my predictions off of these spoilers, but there's still a lot we don't know, a lot in between, a lot to be guessed at, which is what I'll be doing. I'll be guessing what I think might happen of the stuff I don't know is going to happen, because there's still a lot of blanks in between these specific spoilers. But I can't just pretend that I don't know these spoilers and try to be like, oh, this is my prediction, when really it's not, which I've actually seen some other channels do. I'm not going to read a spoiler and present it to you like it's my prediction. So I will point out stuff that I have read from the plot leaks, but I'll also be making my own predictions and stuff I don't know. I haven't read all the plot leaks, and maybe a lot of this stuff isn't even in the plot leaks, so I will be making some guesses, which will probably end up being wrong, but we'll see. So regardless, anyway, if you don't want to hear any of these spoilers, then you should stop watching this video now. So for those of you who already read them or don't care, let me get into my predictions. So let us start off with the rushed fellowship of the White Walkers, which I talked about in my last review, where the episode ends, where we see Jon, Jorah, Gendry, Tormund, Beric, Thoros, and the Hound off on their quest to find the White. Now, the plot leaks, from what I remember, the plot leaks, and again, it's been actually months since I read them. I don't want a refresher because I don't want to be any spoiled than I already am. But from what I recall, they state that pretty much that Thoros will be killed by a polar bear. I've heard some other people say the plot leaks said that Beric will be killed, but I personally haven't read anything that said that. The only thing I read said Thoros will be killed by a white polar bear. Haven't heard anything on what happens with to Gendry or Jorah for that matter. We do know that Jon Snow and the Hound will be at the final scene in episode 7 at the Dragon Pit, so we do know that those two at the least survive. And we know Thoros will die, but the others are kind of up in the air. And so what I remember from the plot leaks is that they'll all come under attack and they'll all be pretty much fucked. I can't remember. Some people might know this in more detail, but I don't want to. As I said, I haven't read it recently, so I don't know the exact details. From what I remember, something will happen where pretty much everyone who survived in the Fellowship will get away, but Jon will be trapped on his own, and it looks like he's going to be killed, and then Benjen's going to ride in and save him. And I think we get a shot of this in the trailer of Benjen riding off. And of course, the other huge thing in the plot leaks is that Daenerys comes in with their dragons to save the day, and Viserion gets killed, and the Night King resurrects Viserion as a white and rides him as a dragon rider. So I'm not sure actually if maybe I'm reading this wrong. Maybe I remember the plot leaks wrong. Maybe this is actually the part with Daenerys isn't supposed to happen until later in the season and not this particular Fellowship fight. Because I'm a bit mixed on the way the events go down. But regardless, what do I think is going to happen? So let me start with who I think in the Fellowship will survive and who will die. Well, as I said, we know that Jon and the Hound will survive, so that's a given. I would also add the Hound. I'm sorry, not the Hound. Jorah I think is going to die. In fact, I will put it to you this way. The reason why I'm predicting Jorah is going to survive is because if he does die, then I will be extremely pissed off. Like, very pissed off, very upset. Because you have this whole plot line of giving Jorah grayscale, and then you just quickly cure his grayscale, and then have him return to Daenerys, only to stay there for like a few seconds, and then go, oh, I'm going to go off north. And then just kill him off. Why? What would be the point of any of this? Why give him grayscale? Why have him cured? Why have him there? Why? So, in my mind, he needs to survive in order to do something else, because at the moment, you absolutely need a justification for his storyline this season so far, because right now it doesn't seem justified. So he needs to survive in order to justify us spending this time with him this season, in my mind. So that's why I will be very pissed off if he dies. So that's why I'm predicting he will survive. And I'm also going to predict that Gendry survives. Now, this is the one I'm a bit more iffy about, and I think that he could die, because it's really like the showrunners, because they did this with Ocean Rickon, where they introduced this character we haven't seen in like 3 years, and just kill him off immediately. So I wouldn't be too shocked if that's what they do with Gendry. But again, like, that would make me think a lot less of his storyline, because I feel like his introduction in the last episode was really rushed as it is, and seemed kind of nowhere. I wouldn't go as far as to say I thought he was acting out of character. I thought he was kind of in character, but he did seem a bit jarring, a bit sudden. Like, here's Gendry, and I want to fight White Walkers. It did seem very sudden and rushed. And if they go from that to killing him off, then it's kind of similar to what I was saying about Jorah. They're not justifying why he was there, and I feel we need a justification if he survives and then something happens further down the line. Like, for example, let's say Daenerys makes him Lord of the Stormlands and Robert Baratheon's successor, then that would sort of justify his reintroduction into the show. He serves a purpose. But if he goes up to the north and gets killed by White Walkers, then there's no purpose in having him. His purpose is fan fiction, is fan service, and that makes it a lot worse. So for pretty much the same reason, I'm saying Gendry will die. Now, not will die, will survive. Gendry will not die, he will survive. Now, with who will die, as I said, Thoros of Myr has been in the plot like saying to be killed by a white polar bear. Now, I think in my predictions, I said that this wouldn't happen. Like, I voted against it. I said Thoros would die, but the whole white polar bear thing was a misnomer. I changed my mind. I'm going to change my mind pretty much almost every time I win against the plot leaks, because the plot leaks, as I said, they've been batting 1,000. So I think going against them is a bad bet. But other than that, we did see sort of foreshadowing for this in the first episode, where we saw a white giant. So if they're going to have a white giant, it makes me... and if they're going to have a white dragon, but I'll touch on this shortly, it does make me think that they are doing more things with what can be a white and what can be brought back to dead, from the dead or whatever. So that does... Alright, I'm on board with Thoros of Myr being killed by a polar bear. And plus, it does seem like Thoros is an expendable character, and he's going to go. So the only character that leaves in the Fellowship is, other than the red shirts, which they're all dead. None of those fucking red shirts are surviving, so that's not even worth mentioning. But other than them, is Beric Dondarrion. Now, this is, as I said, I hadn't read any spoilers myself. I heard other people say this, but I'm not sure, because I didn't myself read this, that Beric would die. And I don't know. In my predictions, originally I said that he wouldn't die, but the more I think about it, the more I think that he will, because I think you need to have more than one character in the Fellowship die. And as I said, I don't want it to be Gendry or Jorah, and we know that the Hound and Jon survive. So that leaves Beric. So I think Beric is going to have to be the other person who dies. And I think it's kind of... I thought in my predictions I said it would be kind of ironic if Thoros died but Beric lived, because Thoros was the one who has the ability to bring Beric back to life. So that means that Beric will be faced with this new situation of when he dies, he's dead for good. There's no one left to save him, which I think would be an interesting dynamic. But I think they're actually going to go on the other route, that Thoros is going to die first. And after Thoros died, then Beric will have those few minutes of being, oh, if I die for real. But then he does actually die for real. Then Beric gets killed, and he might die with some weird comment about how, oh well, I'm dead for good finally because Doris won't be there to save him anymore, which would be interesting. So I'm only 2 out of the 7 I'm picking will die. Oh, I didn't talk about Tormund. Tormund's the other one, actually. And I suppose Tormund could die, but I'm really hoping that he doesn't. I think he has almost completed his storyline, maybe a bit more so than like Gendry or Jorah. So if there were going to be a third person to die, I would probably say Tormund. But again, I don't want Tormund to die because I think there needs to be a representation of the wildlings going forward. Unless they're going to say the wildlings don't matter anymore and not going to play a part in the show in the future, so we don't need a representation of them anymore. In that case, I could see them killing Tormund, but I don't know. So I'm going to stick with my only two deaths, Beric and Thoros, and I'll put Tormund as a maybe. So maybe 3, definitely 2, hopefully not more than that. Is my predictions for the Fellowship outing. And maybe for that matter, Benjen would die. We know that Benjen isn't going to be in the Fellowship, but he's going to come from the plot leaks. We know he's going to come and save Jon at the last second, so maybe he dies. But I kind of doubt that. I got the impression more of he's not really involved in the battle. He just comes and saves Jon and then leaves. And then that's it. And that's all there is to it. But maybe, I don't know. Again, I don't remember this very clearly. So maybe the dragons will come after that and save Jon from Benjen, and Benjen will die. I don't know. I'm going to say at the moment that Benjen doesn't die. But he's another question mark for me. But probably not. Okay, let me get to this freaking dragon thing. As I said, this is something I predicted against. I was, very strongly against it. And when I first read this plot leaks, I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's so fan servicey. Oh, and the funny thing is that I heard other people say these plot leaks, but presented as a theory to other people who didn't know anything about the plot leaks. Oh, I envy them. Anyway, so these people who knew nothing about the plot leaks, when they heard this theory of the White Walkers killing one of the dragons and then bringing it back to life as a white and then writing it, they were like, oh, that's so awesome. That is the best thing ever. I really hope they do this. And it's just funny because I had the exact opposite. Now, I suppose we all have different opinions on what we consider fan servicey. Like, for example, in the last episode where Brienne and Arya were fighting, apparently a lot of people hated that and thought that was the worst kind of fan service ever. But I disagree. I loved it. I didn't think it was too fan servicey. Thought it was awesome. I felt, as a fan, I felt very, very rightfully serviced and in a good way. But then on the other hand, I had this very, minority opinion about the fight scene between the Hound and Brienne at the end of season 4, where I didn't care for that, where most people love it, but I thought that was too obvious fan service. I thought that the two of them coming together and fighting didn't really make much sense, and was just there to have, wouldn't it be cool if this badass fought this other badass? See, that I thought was fan servicey, but a lot of people disagree. So I suppose, it'll be the same thing with the dragon. I'm pretty much, I'm walking around the fact that I'm predicting it will happen, which I kind of alluded to by saying the plot leaks are batting 1,000. And this was a big thing in the plot leaks, which most certainly was not, because that's the thing. Some of the things I read in these plot leaks, I don't actually think were actually from the plot leaks. They were just some fake sites pretending it was from the plot leaks. But this dragon thing I know for certain was in the plot leaks because I've seen that everywhere. So it's definitely happening. So what I predict will happen, though, is I think the majority of viewers and auditorship will like this, especially people who didn't know about this. The plot leaks didn't know about this beforehand. I think they're going to think it's awesome. Most people aren't going to see it as fan servicey. Most people are going to accept it as an awesome scene. Now, How I will feel about it, well, it depends on how they pull it off. I suppose I'm kind of slightly biased against it because I had this bad reaction from reading the plot links all the way back. Maybe if I saw play on screen originally, I would have been happier with it. But I don't know. Like, I'm just guessing. It depends on how they pull it off. But I suppose there's a way they could do it where I will be happy with it if it was really... It could actually end up being really awesome and menacing. I could see them, having this white dragon come back to life after we've seen how damaging the dragons are. So, I don't know. There are ways that it could be good, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how we react once it happens, but I'm pretty, accepting of the fact that it will happen. Now, talking about plot leaks that I'm not sure actually plot leaks that might have just been from fake sites pretending to be plot leaks. There's one I read about the Night King using the White Dragon to breathe blue fire, and that's what brings down the wall. Now, I really hope that was a fake leak because that sounds really stupid. I don't care how they pull this off. If they do that, then that will be stupid, and I will fucking hate that. Again, it's similar to what I said about the theory that people had that Bran's marking would allow the White Walkers to go through the wall, which I think we're pretty much past the point of that being a possibility. Because I was really against that. I would say that would be the worst thing the show has ever done if they did this. And I feel along the same lines of this white dragon bringing down the wall, because it shows that the White Walkers are able to pass through the wall because of our heroes were trying to fight them, which makes it be like, well, maybe our heroes shouldn't even try to fight them. Maybe they should just sit at home and knit clothes, and we'd be okay with it, and we'd be fine with the White Walker threat because the wall would keep them out. So that's what I'm really against. I hope whatever causes the wall to crumble or the White Walkers to pass through it or whatever is nothing that is the fault of what our heroes did. Because if it is, then that would make the whole thing kind of useless to me. That would make me think that Jon is in the wrong. They never should have. Bran is dumb. He's evil. He never should have went up there to try to fight the White Walkers in the first place, because what you're actually doing is making things worse. So I very much hope that nothing like that happens. So I'm predicting that nothing like that happens. Anyway, let's move on to I'm going to jump back and forth between episode 6 and 7 again. So let's jump ahead to episode 7, to the other big thing in the plot links we know about, which is the Dragon Pits scene where I don't have the list in front of me, but it's like 17 or so main characters are going to be at one place at the same time. It's going to be like a monumental occurrence. So there's going to be Theon, Euron, Brienne, Podrick, the Hound, Cersei, Jaime, Qyburn, Daenerys, Varys, Tyrion, Jon Snow, leaving out some other people, Bronn, and so a lot of people are going to be in this one place in the fighting pits. And what's said to happen is that Cersei will agree to this truce, which we actually seen brought up in this episode, past episode 5, and I was surprised they actually got to it so early. This is the proposal of an armistice between Cersei and Daenerys, and that Jon's going to bring the White to them. Now, the plot leaks, from what I read, wasn't very clear whether or not this White was still alive or active, but I think it would pretty much have to be in order for Cersei to think of it as any threat. If you just bring a dead body, it's just going to be like, well, wow, a dead body. So it seems like it would have to be active and alive. So it seems like that's what will happen. That's how it goes down. And so the plot leaks say that Cersei will agree to this armistice, and sort of agree to a cease of hostilities so they can go fight the White Walkers. But really, she's going to be planning, she's going to be hoping, now that she believes the White Walkers exist, she's going to be hoping that the White Walkers take out all of her enemies, and is actually going to do some behind the scenes crap to undermine their fight against the White Walkers because she wants them to win. Because even though she knows they're real, she won't consider them. She won't realize how big of a threat they actually are, which is consistent with their character because she didn't realize how big of a threat the dragons actually were until it was too late. So it seems like she'd do the same thing with the White Walkers. So her plan is she hopes that they destroy each other, so that Daenerys and Jon defeat the White Walkers, but at the same time the White Walkers defeat them. Therefore, she can come in, swoop in, control the Seven Kingdoms. And that makes total and complete sense to me. I totally buy it. In fact, we got a little bit of foreshadowing, heavy foreshadowing of that in this episode already, with Cersei saying that she's going to try some backhanded ways to defeat Daenerys because she's realized they can't defeat her with brute strength. So it makes total sense to take opportunity to do this. Now, as for the dragon pit scene itself, I'm still a bit uncertain about what exactly is going to happen in this, because we see a brief shot of the Hound pulling a sword and the trailers for season 7, and definitely was the Hound at the dragon pit scene. So will we get Clegane Bowl? I don't know. I wouldn't be as opposed to the idea of Clegane Bowl. I was just mainly opposed to the idea of Clegane Bowl happening at Cersei's trial by combat, which I knew wouldn't happen. But it happening in the future at this dragon pit scene, I doubt it, but, I won't be up in arms or too shocked if it does, because, it does seem like Dan and Dave are definitely leaning towards the fan service here with having the Gilly read the annulment thing about Jon not being a bastard, and then, of course, the whole white dragon thing, which I think, personally, I can't see any scenario where I don't think this is the biggest fan service-y thing the show has ever done. So in comparison, having Clegane Bowl, I think will be very light fan service thing to do in comparison to the Dragon White thing. But that's just my opinion. That's just me. So I wouldn't be that. But I don't know. But whether or not they'll be infighting at the Dragon Pit scene, I'm not sure if it would just be... I don't know if it would just be a dialogue scene, if it would just be people talking. I have an idea there might be some sort of fighting. As I said, we saw the Hound pull a sword, so there might be some hostilities. Now, the other names, I think I forgot to mention before, Euron. We know that Euron's going to be here, and so it was my prediction that Theon would kill Euron they'd have a fight, and Theon would find some way to kill Euron, and so Theon would become the king of the Iron Islands, which is pretty hard to believe that this coward would actually be able to defeat King Euron in combat, but maybe he'd find some backhanded, way to do it or something. Maybe he'll cheat. I don't know. But from what I read in the plot leaks, and again, this might be one of those fake leaks, because as far as I know, I was the only one that read this, so maybe this isn't true. Maybe it's just one of those sites that misled me. And I hope it is, because it sounds really stupid. But I read that Euron will simply be like, oh, these White Walkers sound scary. I'm just going to go back to the Iron Islands and hide. I seriously hope they don't do that. That sounds so dumb. But then again, I suppose it could be putting off this Euron-Theon confrontation until season 8, which I could see them doing. But still, that sounds so dumb. Although, again, I wouldn't put it past the show based on what we've seen so far, because that scene with Mirror saying, oh, I'm just going to go home. Wow, screw the White Walkers, screw all the time I spent helping you, Bran. I'm just going to fuck off home for no good reason. So in that case, the show did that. I could see them doing the same thing with Euron being, ooh, the White Walkers are scary. I'm just going to go to Iron Islands and hide. So not beyond the realm of possibility, but I hope it's not the case. Yeah. So also we know that from the plot leaks that after they come to this agreement, Jaime's going to learn that Cersei's planning to undermine them, and he's not going to be okay with this. He's not going to be happy with this, and so he is going to actually go north. He's going to abandon Cersei and be like, fuck you, I am done with you. And he's going to go north with the rest of the people to take on the White Walkers, and that's how the season went. So speaking of this Cersei thing, let me get to this miscarriage thing. Now, I've very arrogantly, in my episode 4 discussion with Max, I was like, oh, these plot leaks might not be 100% correct because they predicted that Cersei would get pregnant and have a miscarriage, and we haven't seen any hint of that happening yet. Of course, very next episode, I'm pregnant. Fuck, there we go. So we know, some people fans are actually questioning whether or not she's actually pregnant, that she's lying, which I suppose it's not a very far-fetched thing to guess, to say that Cersei is lying. But from the plot leaks, we know that she is actually pregnant, but she'll have a miscarriage. Now, this, I think, will be an important, because when I first read this in the plot leaks, I was like, why would they even bother? This is another thing I betted against, because why would they even bother doing this? This seems to be a waste of time and not really have anything to do with anything. But the more I think about it, the more I think it does make sense, because this will actually be a character driving force for Jaime and Cersei. For Cersei, it's going to make her become even more of the Mad Queen, even more distant, even even less feeling or compassion or empathetic than she already is, which is hardly at all at the moment. So she's going to be more cold, more evil, if you will, although I don't like using that word, but whatever. After having this miscarriage, because for her getting pregnant, I think she sees that as the new hope, because she was so devastated losing all 3 of her kids, and that was because the children were the only things keeping her sane. It's the only thing she really cared about, and when they died, she was off the rails. I think this pregnancy, and this is also a hope for her to just proudly say, I'm having sex with my brother and he's fathering my children, and fuck you if you don't care. Fuck you if you care, because I don't care what you think. I'm the goddamn queen. I'll do whatever. So I think she's feeling happy at the opportunity of doing this. So if she miscarries, which from the plot leaks we know she will, then that's going to make her even more or less, I say more or less again, that's going to even make her more cold, less feeling that had to go through this miscarriage. She's going to become more of a sort of backstabber, more evil per se, because of this. And with Jaime, after seeing her reaction to this, I think this is going to be the straw that broke the camel's back, or as you say, that combined with the fact that she's going to try to undermine the fight against the White Walkers, which is the biggest threat that could kill them all, and he's gonna realize you're fucking insane. That's because this is a journey that we've definitely seen going on all season, ever since the end of last season, where Jaime is still totally on Team Cersei, but he's becoming more and more wary of her. The words that Lady Olenna spoke to him were putting seeds of doubt in his mind. In this last episode, we saw Cersei say, oh, if you ever betray me, don't ever betray me again, which is a really fucked up thing to her to say. So more and more Jaime's like, ugh. So I think by the time this miscarriage combined, not the miscarriage, but the way she reacts to the miscarriage, combined with how she is going to actually help the White Walkers kill everyone, is going to make Jaime be like, oh, no, fuck you. I am done with you. And at the end of the season, he'll head up north with everyone else to face the White Walker threat. So now let me talk a bit about what's going on in Winterfell with Littlefinger. So the only thing I remember from the plot leaks is that the Littlefinger would try to divide Arya and Sansa, which is we get the beginning of in this past episode, which is pretty much what I thought would come of it, but somehow apparently eventually leads to Sansa ordering Arya to kill Littlefinger. Now I'm a bit hazy on the step in between, what comes in between Sansa and Arya fighting, to Sansa all of a sudden ordering Arya to kill Littlefinger. Now again, I went against this prediction because it doesn't sound right, but the plot leaks have been batting 1,000, so it's not wise of me to go against it. So let's say Sansa orders Arya to kill Littlefinger. Why does she do this? I hope it's something more too than just them finding out Littlefinger was behind trying to tear them apart, because that doesn't seem justification enough. Although again, it wouldn't surprise me if the show did this, because they've been rushing through shit all season, especially this past episode, so it wouldn't be too much of a shock, but I hope there's more to it than that. I hope that Littlefinger has greater plans to, to silence all these people who have been saying, oh, Littlefinger is dumb, he doesn't have any plans. I'm totally faithful. I have faith in Littlefinger that he has a greater plan. I think it's obvious part of it is trying to make Sansa ruler of the North and control her and use the North to take over the Seven Kingdoms. How is that not a good plan? Why doesn't that make Littlefinger stupid? That doesn't make him stupid. He's still a good schemer. Come on, guys. But anyway, I think that Sansa's going to learn of this plan. She's going to learn more specifically of how he's trying to manipulate her and how he's doing. There's going to be some specific thing that's going to be really evil and backstabbing, and that we don't know about yet, and that Sansa's going to find out about, and that's going to be a straw that broke the camel's back, and then she's going to order Arya to kill Littlefinger. But what happens after that is a bit of a mystery, because on the one hand, you have Arya with this Valyrian steel dagger, which Valyrian steel, of course, is a good weapon against the White Walkers. So it does seem to be foreshadowing that Arya will stay up north to face the White Walker threat. And it seems to make kind of sense that she would want to help Jon, because Jon is the one she cares about the most, and Jon is the one who's most worried about the White Walker threat. So it kind of makes sense that she would stay there to fight the White Walkers. But I'm actually still betting against that. I am still betting that she will go back down to King's Landing to face try to kill Cersei in the mountain. And there's a theory put out there. Like, originally I was thinking she would do this because she and Sansa would have a falling out, which I still think is a possibility. I still think is a possibility even after Sansa orders Arya to kill Littlefinger, that the two of them could still have a falling out. And not really a huge falling out, but maybe Arya just be like, I like you, Sansa, but I'm not really, this whole politics northern thing isn't for me. I'm an assassin, so I'm going to go and assassinate people. And I can see that happening. But it's been also a theory that's been put out there is that Sansa will order Arya to go south to kill Cersei, because Bran or whoever will let them know that Cersei is planning on sabotaging their fight against the White Walker and using it against them. And so they'll see this coming, so they'll purposely send Arya down to kill Cersei in order to stop her from sabotaging their plans to fight the White Walkers. And I could see that happening too. I think that's a possibility. But I think the prediction I'm going to stick with the most is that Arya, the second one I said, that Arya is going to be like, nah, this political stuff is not for me. And she's going to realize that she can never really go home again, and that Winterfell isn't really her home anymore. And she's going to fuck off to be an assassin and go assassinate people. That's the theory I'm sticking to. Now, whether or not she actually kills Cersei is something I talked about in my Season 7 predictions for Arya. You can go watch that if you want. Bottom line is I don't think she will. But regardless, I think that's how Season 7 will end, with her saying, nah, peace out, I'm back to King's Landing and kill Cersei. But we'll see. Okay, so finally let me touch on how I think the season will end. So I'm not sure exactly where this Dragon Pit scene will take place in Episode 7. Because the interesting thing is, we know that Episode 6 and Episode 7 will be almost an hour and a half each. It was like 70 minutes for one, 80 minutes for the other, I believe. Or something like that. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments, but, doesn't really matter the details. They're going to be long episodes. So a lot's going to happen in that. So that makes me think that the Dragon Pit scene will not be the final scene. And maybe it will only be like halfway through Episode 7. Or possibly even at the start. And we might get a lot more in the back half that wasn't in the plot links, or that they didn't go into great detail about. Although there's a few more things I didn't mention in the plot links, like Daenerys having sex with Jon on the boat, and Jon learning that his real name is Aegon. And again, that's another thing I voted against because it sounds so dumb, but that foreshadowing with Gilly in the past episode makes pretty clear that in fact is going to be what happened. I'm still not on board with that. Now, I still don't know if Jon will find out, if Bran will actually tell Jon this season. That's still a big question mark. And the other question mark is whether or not Jon will actually tell Daenerys, and they'll find out that she'll find out he is a Targaryen. I don't know if that will happen. I'm still uncertain. I can't say if that's going to happen before the end of the season. The plot leaks mentioned them having sex, but it didn't mention them a marriage proposal. I think there's going to be a marriage proposal regardless of whether or not they find out Jon's a Targaryen. I think just logically, this season has very obviously been building towards these two getting together, not just from a romantic level, but also from a political standpoint, because they're sort of at an impasse where Jon doesn't want to give up being king, and Daenerys wants to control the whole Seven Kingdoms. So it seems like it's obviously building to a compromise. The more these two get together, an obvious compromise would be for Jon to marry her, so he doesn't have to give up being king. He can be king of the Seven Kingdoms, and she can be queen of the Seven Kingdoms, and they'll be king and queen together, which a lot of people are very much against, but I'm not so much against. If they end the show with the two of them ruling Westeros together, then I'll be against that, but I don't think that will happen. But ending season 7 with that, I'd be fine. So I do think that is, we will see a marriage proposal. I don't think we'll actually see them get married by the end of the season, but I think there'll definitely be a proposal, and there'll be an engagement, I should say, by the end of the season. But how the season actually ends, well, everyone's saying with the wall coming down, and I'll have to agree with that. Even if the wall doesn't come down, the White Walkers will pass it. Either way. Like before, I was very adamant that the wall wouldn't come down. Nah, I don't really care. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I'm thinking, though, if the wall does come down, it won't be like the entire thing, because that freaking thing is long. It's huge. It could just be a small section of it, which is really all that the White Walkers really need to get by. They don't need the whole thing to go down. If a little section comes by, they can just go through that section. So that'd be good enough for them. So I think that if that does happen, it will be the final scene of the season, definitely. So I don't think that will happen with the Fellowship battle then, because the Fellowship battle, I think, is actually going to take place a bit further back from the wall. And we know, and this thing with the wall actually coming down will be a few episodes later. Well, not few. Next episode, the final episode, because the battle will be in episode 6, and then episode 7 is when at the very end we'll see the White Walkers purging the wall and bringing the wall down. Now I hope we do get more with Bran, and he contributes somehow to fighting the White Walkers, other than just like looking at them through ravens. I hope we see more revelations with Bran, but still uncertain about that. But anyway, that's how I think season 7 will end. So that is it. That's going to be it for my predictions for season 7. I know this ended up being a much longer video than I originally intended, but that's all good. Thank you so much for sticking through me with this, and make sure to check out my reviews for episodes 6 and 7 coming up. I'll also be doing live discussions videos on the Wednesday following the episode ending for episodes 6 and 7. I'll be over on African Tomko's channel. We'll be joined by Don Willie for episode 6 and Phil the Issues Guy for episode 7. So that is going to be a lot of fun. Also, I will be resuming my further analysis videos for episode 6 and 7. So be sure to check those out as well. As well as checking out my channel for many other videos on shows like Star Trek, Dark Matter, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.